Pathauto is a module which lets you automate the generation of URL aliases in Drupal. Now, URL aliases or slugs or permalinks, as they are called in WordPress, help with search engine optimization, and they are more user-friendly as well. So instead of a URL being node/4 like it is here, we could have a URL alias which is /blog/ and then update chosen module as the actual URL alias. So we can have the URL alias generated using the title here. The module allows you to define custom patterns which are generated when an entity is created. Now, I should mention, Drupal core has supported URL aliases for a long time, but they weren't automatically generated. So if I was to edit this article and then click on URL alias, I can change this to custom link or custom URL, click on save, and now you can see that this article has a custom URL alias, but you don't want to customize the alias by hand on every piece of content. So you want to use Pathauto to automatically generate the URL aliases. So if you want to learn more about Pathauto, just head over to drupal.org/project/Pathauto, and also take note of the dependencies in Drupal. This module requires token and CTools, but Composer will handle downloading the dependencies for us. So let's go ahead now and download the module. So I will close this tab, go into my terminal and type in Composer, require Drupal/Pathauto. Now that we have downloaded the modules, let's jump back into our site and then go to Extend and then search for Pathauto and then simply install it. As mentioned earlier, if you want to create a custom alias, you can do so by editing an article or a basic page and adding the alias into the URL alias section. But now, because Pathauto is installed, you can go to Configuration and then scroll all the way down and click on URL aliases. And then from here, you can create your URL aliases, and also they will be listed here as you create them. And you can filter them by entering in a keyword into this filter aliases and click on filter. And you can also create a new alias by clicking on add aliases, and you can create one from here. Now you can create an alias for any Drupal system path and not just content types. So you could create an alias for taxonomies such as terms. So just remember that if a path is controlled by Drupal, you can create an alias for it. Let's now go back to the listing page, and let's go ahead now and create our first pattern. This will be used to automatically create the aliases, and it will also save us a lot of time because we won't have to create a custom alias for every piece of content. So click on Patterns and then click on Add Pathauto Pattern, and then select Content from Pattern Type, and then select Article from Content Type because we want to add this pattern to the article content type. And then in label, I'll just enter in article because the article content type will only have a single pattern. And then in the path pattern, this is where we define the URL, and we use tokens for this. So let me open up the tokens pop-up, and let me also expand it. And then I'll click on nodes. And what I'll do is I will use the node title, and let me close that. So the pattern will be /articles, and then it'll be the actual node title. And then click on save. So now that we have our first pattern, you may be thinking, do I need to manually update each article with the new pattern? Well, the answer is no. Pathauto allows you to bulk generate aliases. So to do that, click on bulk generate. And then from the first checkbox list, select content, because the article content type is part of the content entity type. And then further down, you have three options. The first option, generate a URL alias for unaliased paths only. This will generate the alias for articles which do not have an aliased path. Then you have the second option, update the URL alias for paths having an old URL alias. This will simply update existing generated aliases. And then the last one, regenerate URL aliases for all paths. This will simply regenerate the paths for all content. Because we've just installed Pathauto and we do not have any generated paths, we can just leave it with the first option. So let's go ahead and click on update. And now we have three aliases. And if we go to list, we can see our three aliases which have been generated, but we still have this custom URL because we customized it. Now that we've created a bunch of aliases, let's take a look at the module settings. So click on settings. And then if you scroll down, the first option is the separator. So this allows you to define the character which will separate the words. So by default, a dash is used, but you could change it to an underscore, but normally I just leave it as a dash. And then further down, you have maximum alias length. This is the max length of the alias. Now, you do not want the alias to be very long, so I would leave it at 100. And then further down in the update action, this lets you define what the module should do when an entity is updated. And then further down in strings to remove, the module will remove these words from the alias because you want your URL alias to just have important keywords. You don't want to waste space on these type of filler words. And then right back at the top, and I kept this for last, I want to mention this verbose setting. This setting is great for editors. It will notify them when an alias has changed because depending on the pattern and tokens you have used, an alias could change when an editor simply changes the article title. You can break links by simply changing the title if you're not careful. So let me now demonstrate. Let me go to content and I'll open that up in a new tab. And I'll switch on the verbose option and then click on save configuration. And if we go to one of these, yes, let's go to this one. And we can see that the URL alias is articles/managing media assets using core media in Drupal 8. And you can see that it is a representation of this title minus the word in. Now, if we go and edit something in the body field and click on save, nothing changes. The URL stays the same. But if we go in and edit, and let's say we have updated this for Drupal 9, and we click on save, you will see that the URL alias has changed. And then there's this message which tells us a new alias has been created. This is important for editors because it will notify them that the URL to this article has changed. So anyone linking to the version with Drupal 8 will get a 404 error. So just be careful of that. Now, there are a few options we can do to mitigate this risk. If we click on edit, we could scroll down to URL alias and simply uncheck generate automatic URL aliases and then just change this to Drupal 8 and then click on save. And now the alias will go back to its original path. And then if we click on edit again and then update this for Drupal 10, you will see that the path will stay the same. So just be careful of that, especially if you are going to use the title token in your URL alias. But let's go ahead now and simply switch this back on so that paths are automatically created. Okay. Now let's close this tab and let's check out bulk deleting of aliases. So from this page, you can batch delete aliases by entity type over here. So here you can see content, taxonomy term, or user. And then here in the delete options section, you can then specify to only delete automatically generated aliases. But this being a test site, I can easily go ahead and delete all the aliases. So let me select all aliases and I will uncheck this one so it deletes absolutely everything. And then we click on delete aliases now, and then we go to list and we won't see any. Now, I should mention that if you are going to do this on a live site with real traffic, please back up your database, because the last thing you want to do is accidentally realize that you have deleted very important URL aliases, and then you have to deal with going through hundreds of pages and adding them back in. So normally with delete aliases, you really wouldn't do it on a production site unless you have a very good reason to do so. So the only time I have gone in and deleted a whole bunch of aliases is when the client wants to change the whole information architecture on the site. But that was a massive project in itself, and we planned everything and we deleted and regenerated the aliases after hours, of course. So just be aware of that. And there is a nice little note here as well to make sure you back up these two tables, path_alias and also path_alias_revision. So that's a quick introduction to using Pathauto. I've been using it for many years, and I think on every single website I have worked on as well. So I highly recommend it, and you should install it on every single website you work on.